Attention bowlers, we are gonna get started. Welcome to Concord, New Hampshire at Boutwell's Bowling Center for another Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match in Class D North. My name is Steve Kelly. I'll be with you today on the audio and to provide the streaming, the commentary, the scoring, and to just show you a great match from two great bowlers. It's going to be Greg Vellante at Scott Perry. The stage is set for a thrilling match today. I'm here in the broadcast booth. How are y'all? You look great out there. Three Ball Spare welcomes you to this Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match. There's Greg Vellante with a 6-drop and a split. Greg Vellante will take 3 more out on a spare shot. Not a bad idea. I think you're going to love this match today. You're not going to want to miss this. Everyone's going to be talking about Greg Vellante at Scott Perry, especially by the time this match is over. And there's Greg Vellante with a perfect box with a 10 to start things out. This match format is 5 strings with 14 points on offer. It's 2 points per string and 4 for total pinfall. If there is a tie, the points are evenly split. Some housekeeping today. Candlepin bowling is based out of New England and Canada. It's a bit different from 10-pin. We don't clear the dead wood around the pins, and there are 3 balls per frame if no strikes or spares are thrown. The game is much more difficult than 10-pin with much more entropy and much more smaller targets, as we're staring at a 6-pack from a 4-drop for Greg Vellante down there on the right side, on the right half of the lane, on lane 23. And Greg Vellante shaves a few more off for a 10 box on the 1 and the 9. As of January 2026, the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour average range is about 83 to 127 at the extreme ends. So it's definitely a league of all skill levels as Greg Vellante takes an 8 box for 18 after 2. Subtitles and live captionings are available should you prefer them. YouTube should have a transcript feature handy as well. I'll call the match for you in audio form as well as keep the scoreboard updated on your screen. My scoreboard is unofficial. The bowlers make the final calls on scores. If there are any conflicts, I go with what they have unless they ask me for another set of eyes. I might sometimes verify scores if things seem out of sync, and I appreciate your patience when that happens, as Greg Vellante drops 7 here. And for the spare shot, he was on the 1-3-7, just a little bit off the target of the 1-3 pocket, connected with only the 3, leaving the 1 and the 7. If you like this content, that is awesome. I encourage you to consider subscribing to this channel to help us grow. Streamed live first on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook and videotaped for 3 Ball Spare on YouTube later on. That's 26 after 3 for Greg Vellante. Now let's continue. You're watching Greg Vellante, who's our away bowler today, who comes to us from Academy Lanes in Haverhill, Massachusetts, all the way up to Concord, New Hampshire to battle Scott Perry on the schedule. He takes 5. You like jazz? That's the 1-3-6-10-5. Unnamed shot, 4 horsemen plus a rear sleeper pin. Greg Vellante will poke the 1 and the 5, a little full on the second ball for the spare, no good. Greg Vellante has a season record of 68 and 58. He's bowled 9 matches so far this season. When he's on the road, he's 36 and 34, positive record. When he's at home, he's also positive, 32 and 24, even more positive. There's a 7 box for Greg Vellante. That's 33 after 4. On average, Greg Vellante is about 101.8 per string this season in the ACST at least. Away, he's 100.2 on the average. Home, he's a little better, 103.95, and he'll drop 6 here. It's 5 boxes per bowler before we switch to the opposite bowler. So Greg Vellante, this is his final frame before we see Scott Perry for 5 boxes. 1-5-3-10 for Greg Vellante. He'll be full on the 1-5 once again. That's 33 after 4 for Greg, who has a high single of 129 and a high series of 557, and he'll clean that up for a 10 box, 10 on the bookends. That's 43 after 5 for Greg Vellante. Let's check in on the scores. Still very early. Greg Vellante with 2 10 boxes, 43 after 5, 1 for 5 on the head pin with 1 split. We'll say hello to Greg Vellante once again in a little bit, but in the meantime, we're going to be saying hello to the first time to Scott Perry today, and he'll start on lane 24, where Greg Vellante started on lane 23. Scott Perry has a season record of 94 and 60. He's bowled 11 matches. Away, he's 58 and 26. That's a good road record. At home, he is nearly 500, a little more positive than 500, 36 and 34. And he'll split 7 with a spare leave. That's the 4-5-7 with wood diagonal to the 5, and it's angled correctly. I like the placement of this wood. Perry. Oh, just a little bit off to the right. I know what he wanted to do, just overshot it a little bit to the right. Scott Perry averages 102.7 this season, in the ACST specifically. On the road, he's 104.57. At home, he's 100.56, and he'll take a 7-box in the beginning. Scott Perry's high single is 135, a high series of 561 in the ACST this season so far. 11 of 18 matches in the regular season played so far. This is his 12th. 19 strikes, 95 spares, 116 tens for Scott Perry with a 42% perfect box percentage, and there's nearly a strike. He drops everything but the 4-pin. Perfect on the head pin so far with 2 frames thrown. It's 50 boxes in total across 5 strings, 10 boxes per string. I'll use the term box and frame interchangeably if you're not into the Candlepin lingo world. We'll try to make it easy for you. And you know what was easy for us? A spare for Scott Perry. Our first of the day. On a single pin, no less. On the 4-pin, he played the wood, and he got it. Scott Perry has a spare. He's 17 and a bonus after 2. Scott Perry has 5,651 seasonal pinfall. He's 2nd place in his division in Class D North Division 1, and he's currently 1st place in the wildcard seedings. There's a strike, though. Nice, big 20, strike on spare. That's how you warm up. That's how you get hot fast. Let's watch this shot by Scott Perry once again. He's 37 and a bonus after 3. He's perfect on the head pin, and just threw a strike on spare on the 1-2 pocket. Look at that. Scott Perry is working on a strike. On the strike fill, a nice opener of a 7-drop. Not on the head pin, but it didn't matter too much. It was a good mix. Perry to complete the strike fill with a spare, another big 20. Beautiful on the 1-3-6. That's 57 and a bonus after 4 for Scott Perry. Look at this. Look at this shot again, right on the outside of the head pin. Got some sidewall bounce. That was great. Scott Perry's working on a mark once again. A spare fill this time. A little off to the head pin to the left. 1-7-10, 3-8-9. That's a 4 fill on the spare. 61 after 4. Perry. Again, just a little bit to the left of the target. Leaves the 1 and the 3. For the 10 box, Scott Perry will take a 10. How's that for a half? Wow. 3 marks for Scott Perry strung together put him at 71 after 5. Just 5 boxes with 2 big 20s in a row. A 20 on 20 followed by a 14. Puts him at 71 after 5. Greg Vellante trails by 28. But it's still early. We're only 5 boxes into a 50-box match. It's 2 points per string every 10 boxes and 4 for total pinfall after 50 boxes. And Greg Vellante is getting ready to bat. Because this is totally baseball. Greg starts out with a 9-drop, maybe a strike. 8-pin. 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 Stays up. Nice bid by Greg. Just not much going on. He gave it his all, but he also gave the spare his all. And he got that spare. 53 and a bonus for Greg. String a couple marks together, and he'll be right back in this game. On the 8-pin. That should have been a strike. That really should have been a strike. That's a shot that we saw go when John Cadero threw it. And he kind of danced around and made it and coerced the 5-pin to go down when it was a similar situation. Greg Vellante is working on a spare fill and a strike again. Another 9-drop on the kingpin. A big 19 in the 6th. That puts him at 62 after 6. Single pin spare kingpin, no wood. Or no wood worth playing, really. Greg Vellante on the kingpin, and he'll slightly miss it to the right. Was kind of more in the vicinity of the 3-pin. Greg will miss it again to the left this time. That'll be a 9-box. That will be 71 after 7 for Greg Vellante. Greg Vellante, here's his stats in case you missed it before. He's currently 3rd place in his division and 5th in the wild card. And his longest streak of strings over 100 this season has been 6. That's a lot of games to throw over 100. To keep that streak is harder than you would think. As Greg Vellante splits 7. That's the 2, the 4, and the 6. What more can I tell you about Greg Vellante, who has 11 strikes, 90 spares, and 80 tens for the season. 40% perfect box percentage for the season in the ACST, with 4,584 pinfall this season, not counting this match. Greg Vellante shooting for a 10 on the 2 and the 6. Nice 10 box for Greg. That's 81 through 8. Greg Vellante is on the road 100.2 and 101.8, factoring in away and home. In Greg Vellante's past 5 matches, he's taken 36 points to the bank, averaging 7.2 points per match. His longest winning streak of greater than 7 points in a match has been 4 so far this season. Greg Vellante's on 1-3 pocket. Another, I was about to say 9-drop. The 7-pin hung on. It's a 2 and the 7. A wiggly 7. Here comes Greg Vellante, and he'll cross over a little bit too much. He's on the 10 and leaves the 2. And Greg will make that a 9-box. That's 90 and 9 for Greg Vellante. He had some trouble in the first half getting on the head pin. In the second half, he has been lights out. 4 for 4 on the head pin. 2 of those were splits, and 2 of those were, 2 of those were 9-drops. I got faked out by this last one, which was almost a 9-drop with the 7-pin wiggling, but it was an 8-drop. Vellante on the 1-2 pocket again. He has been perfect this half for the head pin. A 7-drop. Greg for the spare, just to the left of the target pins. Seven, 8, 9, or 10 for Greg. It ends up being an 8-box. Greg Vellante a little bit under average in the first game, but he'll clock in with a 98 with 1 mark and 3 10-boxes. And that second half of head pin shots and none head pin shots on the first ball for Greg was great, so this is promising for Greg. A 98 first game. Now Scott Perry, who's coming back to the lanes on a 71.5. Let's see what he can do with this. And he'll be on lane 23 at Boutwell's when we come back. Here's Scott Perry now, who threw a spare, a strike on spare, and then a spare on strike. His only non-perfect box has been the first one, which was a 7. Here we go. Scott Perry to the left of the head pin. 6-drop, 4 horsemen right side. 1, 3, 6, 10. Perry outside of the head pin, and he'll take the spare on the 4 horsemen, running them down. What a nice shot. 81 and a bonus for Scott Perry. Look at this. Outside of the head pin, it goes down, no problem. If we're waiting, I have a couple of seconds to show you Scott Perry's stats. He averages 102.7 for the season so far. He's about a little over the halfway point in his season. It's 18 matches regular season. He's bowled 11. This is 12th. 135 high single, 561 high series. In 5 matches, he's taken 52 points, averaging 10.4 points per match, a winning record per match in the past 5 in recent performance. That looks like a 5 fill for Scott Perry on his spare. Clutch pins in the middle, and it looks like it can go. That's 86 after 6. 135, 8-9, where the 3 kind of got a little closer to the rest. Perry. Will the ball come get the 9? Not quite. Good effort. Right on the target. Don't really honestly know how or why that 9 pin survived, but it did. Scott Perry's on track to go well over 100 way before the end of the game. He'll take a 9. That's 95 in 7. Compare that to 71 after 7 for Greg Vellante. We're at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire today. Scenic and snowy out. A couple of inches of snow on the ground in the surrounding areas. A little more south than here, but driving south to north, you will definitely experience a New England winter today, for at least the next few hours. We might be waiting on a lane event. So in the meantime, let's talk about Boutwell's Bowling Center while we are kindly waiting for that to get cleared up. So Boutwell's Bowling Center is at 152 North State Street in Concord, New Hampshire. There's 12 lanes on each half of the building in Boutwell's. Today we are on the side with lanes 13 through 24. It's CompuScore, computerized semi-automatic scoring. You still have to press the buttons to enter the scores, but it will do the math for you, and that's always nice. Boutwell's Bowling Center, there's no synthetic material on the lanes here. It's all wood approaches and lanes. The owner of Boutwell's Bowling Center is Andy Dellis, and he is flanked by his army of sons, Alex, Dino, and Dimitri. We're still just waiting on that lane clearance. It looks like the lane is resetting, so that's promising. Boutwell's is also the home of champions, featuring Dimitri Dellis and Matt Powers of Class C and E. They won it all last season. And you can watch their championship matches on 3-Ball Spare on YouTube if you want to relive that this past summer, in summer of 2025. And I think we should be okay. It looks like things are clearing up down there. Boutwell's Bowling Center has been around since about the 1950s or so, originally known as Boutwell's Bowlamore. Some of the wall art still displays that. Boutwell's Bowling Center used to be 12 lanes, and then they expanded to 24. That was according to an old card that Alex Dellis found. And I think we're back. So it's still Scott Perry with 3 boxes to go in this game. And there's Scott Perry with a 6-drop. That's the 1, the 2, the 7, and the 8. Before the Dellis owned Boutwell's, Boutwell's was formerly owned by former WNDS Candlepin Stars and Strikes co-host Dan Murphy. Did a whole bunch of stuff for the Candlepin community for decades, and there's a nice shot for Scott Perry. Look at that mark. Making it look easy down there. That's 105 and a bonus for Scott Perry. Let's take a look at this again on the 1, 2, 7, 8. That piece of wood that came off the right sidewall and rolled over to the left in the back. That was what secured the spare. That's Scott Perry's 5th mark of the game. And his 6th perfect box of the game for 8. Dan Murphy also did a bunch of other things for the Candlepin community. Not only did he run the ICBA, but he was also the developer and chief instructor for the ICBA Candlepin Instructor School. That was a project he took great pride in. 2-time inductee into the Candlepin Hall of Fame, once for competitive ability and once for the ICBA President's Cup. And this was his house for the longest time. I remember my first time at Boutwell's was in, I think, 2007 or 2008 for a youth Candlepin championship up here, or tournament or something. And I remember I was bowling on lanes 13 and 14 with my team. I have a picture from a flip phone from back then. Back then, the scoring TVs were big tube TVs. They're not the flat screen Vizios that they are now. Different times back then, but still the same software, same CompuScore software. That has not changed. Scott Perry working on a mark. He'll drop 5. That's a left side Colery and a 5 fill. 110 after 8. Scott Perry versus the Colery, and the Colery is down. Another mark in the 9th. 120 and a bonus for Scott Perry. Banner game for Scott. These lane reset issues are definitely worth the wait, and it's not phasing Scott. He's at 120 after 9, and his high single is 135 for the season. So we are on high single watch for Scott Perry in the first game. Look at on the outside hit of the head pin of the left side Colery. That was a great shot. Look at all these marks. 6 marks. 6 marks for 9 frames. And 7 perfect boxes for 9 frames. 120 and counting. A lead of 22 and counting for Scott with a box and a third to go. Perry is working on a mark. Left side of the head pin mixes 4. Hey, it's still 14 in the 9. It's still a big 14. 124 and 9. 1, 5, 3, 8, 9, 10. Perry. And he'll mark that up again. 134 plus change coming up for Scott Perry. Barring no disasters, this will be a high single for the season in the ACST for Scott, who previously had 135 in the high single department. Look at that. Final ball of the first game. 134 and counting. The fill. Head pin, little full. 6 fill, I think. Yes, 6 fill. Some debris down there was just settling. It's a 140 and a new high single for Scott Perry. One heck of an opening salvo. So 140 for Scott Perry. He'll take the first game by 42 pins. That is how you bowl. Moving on to game number 2. If you thought game 1 was too exciting, I got news for you. We're just getting started here on the ACST. This Class D North match. Greg Vellante and Scott Perry. I'm Steve Kelly on the mic. Great to have you. Whenever, however, it'll be Greg Vellante on lane 23. And here we are. Greg on the 4-7. Greg Vellante has passed 5 matches. He's taken 25-51 total pins. 3 matches over 500 for the season. And he'll leave the 10 pin on the second ball. Good spare attempt. His longest streak of matches over 500 has been 3 in a row so far. And there's a 10 box for Greg Vellante. 10 after 1. Per away match, Greg Vellante is averaging 7.2 points so far. At home, he's averaging 8 points per home match. That is basically a winning record at home and just barely south of a winning record on the road. Greg Vellante on the 1-2 pocket, a nice ball, 3-5-6. 7 drop. Recent performance for Greg Vellante, 8 strikes, 64 spares, and 54 tens in his past 5 matches. Like most bowlers, Greg Vellante's greatest strength is in the spares. And Greg will take a 9 box, leaving the 6 pin. That's 19 after 2 for Greg. On average, Vellante goes 20 for 50 for head pin shots with an 8.8 split average per match. He has 4 pinfall wins this season. We might be waiting on bowling balls, I think. That's okay. Again, here's Greg Vellante. In case you want to see his superlatives and stats once again, he has the number 8th highest Class D average at 101.8. Recently, Greg Vellante faced Jacob Morrill in round 8. He took 6 points with a 493 series. He bowled a 92, a 95, and a 108, an 82, and a 116 with no strikes, 11 spares, and 8 tens. He had 20 headpin shots for 50 with 9 splits. And Greg Vellante has his longest streak of matches with more than 10 points at 2 in a row so far. And we're still just waiting on a brief lane maintenance issue, so no worries. So that's Greg Vellante, who's currently bowling. We're just on pause for a moment. So if you're watching this for the first time and you just can't quite get enough of bowling and want to see plenty more, on your screen I have a whole bunch of other socials and YouTube pages and whatnot that we can talk about. The page I run is 3 Ball Spare on YouTube, but there's also places such as the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour on Facebook. There's also a YouTube page for it as well. Candlepin Corner runs a YouTube channel. Candlepin Bowling Network has a Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channel. At Candlepin Bowling, if you're into TikTok for the Outrun the Bear festivities, and they post a lot of really funny memes. They're also on Instagram as well. It's at Outrun the Bear Candlepin, and really funny stuff. And they have a Facebook page, needless to say, as well. And there's also the Candlepin chat page on Facebook. We'll talk about that. That's a great place to find out if you want to figure out when the latest tournaments are, what the latest news is, discussion, all that kinds of stuff. That's on the Candlepin chat page on Facebook. That's a Facebook group. And then in addition to that, there's alleychat.net and youtube.com/alleychat. Alleychat they were the stewards of the Friday Night Pro League stats for the longest time. And they had Friday Night Pro League recaps. I don't remember if they're doing them this season, but do check out their website at alleychat.net. And also check out their YouTube page, in which they have a lot of great content in addition to Alley Chat Classics, where they upload a lot of old Candlepin shows and stuff, you know, from the really old days. Currently, in my YouTube Watch Later playlist, I'm watching Tony Marie Baldinelli versus Stacia Zernicki. It was an old Channel 5 Candlepin bowling match, and I've been watching that, and that's been a great match to watch because a lot of the principles of Candlepin bowling, no matter how old, still apply in modern day because the sport is very similar. It's not like football where there's different rules and everything else like that. It's all the advice back then. The cool thing is it still largely applies now. Okay, I say emphasis on think. I think we are good to resume. It looks like Greg Vellante is as well. Well, here comes Greg. Greg's to the left of the head pin, and 6 pins go down. It's the 1-3-6-9. One, 3, 6, 9 for Greg on a spare shot. He's got the spare. 29 in a bonus after 3. Greg Vellante getting things started here. We'll watch this shot. That's a 1-3-6-9, and that was John Cadero walking by. John Cadero featured him as well in ACST recently, and he works at Boutwell's. He was helping with the mechanical situation out back. No problem, though. Greg Vellante working on a mark, and he'll fill with 7. That's the 1, the 9, and the 10. .36 after 3. And Greg will sail into the void between the 9 and the 10. And Greg will make it an 8. That's 44 after 4 for Greg Vellante. 142 so far is his grand total. He has surpassed Scott Perry at 140 after 1 game. 4 extra boxes to get there, no worries. So that's kind of the box advantage Scott Perry has right now. Basically 4 boxes compressed into fewer boxes. And there is Greg Vellante. He'll have a bit of a washout to work out. That's a 4 drop. That's the 1, the 7, the 10, the 3, the 4, and the 9. On the 1-3 pocket, Greg Vellante takes them all but the 7. Greg Vellante will at least sit on a 50-something half, 53 or 54. It ends up being 53 with that 9 box. Here's Greg after 5 boxes. 1.5 game total, 151 with a 53 half. He went 1 for 5 on the head pin with no splits. 2 spares, 4 tens for the day so far. 47% head pin quarterback rating. And now we have Scott Perry, who's going to be starting out the second game. If in case you missed it, he threw an incredible 140 game 1. He just couldn't be stopped with these very crazy marks and the crazy pin action and these explosive second balls. Scott Perry now looks to continue that on lane 24 here on the ACST. In Concord, New Hampshire at Boutwell's Bowling Center. Perry's off to the right of the head pin and he'll drop 5. 1, 2, 4, 7, and 8. Perry for the spare, and he's got it. Yes. It's almost becoming trivial for Scott Perry to clean up a big pile of pins for a spare. In this case, it was the 1, 2, 4, 7, and 8. What part of the head pin did he hit? The inside pocket of the head pin this time. So the Class A shot's the outside. Class B through everything else is the inside, but in this case, it didn't matter. Oops, sorry about that. That's a head pin shot and a 2 fill for Scott. 12 after 1. Hey, it's still 12. Still more than 10. Perry will take the left side of the bird. Roadkill of 7, 9, 10, 3, and 6. Perry for a 10. It's going to be a 6. 18 after 2. Just a rough split and just a rough conversion. 18 after 2 for Perry, 19 after 2 for Greg Vellante. Here's Scott to the left of the head pin. Takes 6 down. 1, 8, 6, 10. And on the 1, 8, 6, 10. Wow, I thought it was going to go. The 6 even got touched. Nothing doing there, though. Good bid, though. That's the theme of Scott Perry's shots today. Making cleanups out of difficult messes. That'll be a 9. That'll be 27 after 3. Scott Perry has 3 matches this season where he's totaled more than 500 in grand total pinfall. In his past 5 matches, he's totaled 2605 pins in pinfall. Longest streak of strings over 100 is 7 in a row. Longest streak of over 500 has been 3 in a row so far. Longest winning streak of more than 7 points per match has been 4 in a row. 1-3 pocket, weirdly full hit. A 4 drop. 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10. Scott Perry will overthrow a little bit over into the left corner into the 4-7 and leave the 2, the 6, the 9, and the 10. This will be for a 10 box, and he's going to just go for pins. That's a good idea. He'll take a 9. 36 after 4. There's something to be said about the third ball. The third ball in which you have a shot like that, I know it's tempting to try to go for the 2 and to kick over into the 6, the 9, and the 10, and you can do that. That is definitely an option for you, but it is high risk if you miss. If you go for the 6, 9, 10, which is a more surefire way to get 3 pins as opposed to 1 in the failure path, that could mean a lot in terms of the difference of grand total pinfall in the game if you're in a scratch match. Anyways, there is a 9 drop for Scott Perry on the kingpin. Let's see if he can close out this half with a mark, just like he started. 36 after 4, plus a 9 drop. 45 and... Oh, and he'll get deflected off the wood. And Perry will take a 10. 46 after 5 for Scott Perry, 3 for 5 on the head pin, and 2 splits. That's a 1.5 game, 1.5 match total of 1.5 game match total of 186 for Scott Perry versus 151 for Greg Vellante. Greg Vellante leads in the game by 7, trails in the total by 35. And Scott Perry has a guaranteed 2 points from the first game. But we're still only halfway through the second game, so plenty of time left. We'll see where the points land. Here's Greg Vellante on lane 24. Off the right of head pin, a good mix. Leaves the 1 and the 9. And Greg is just a little bit off to the left of the head pin, takes the 9, leaves the 1. For the 10 box, it's going to be a 9 for Greg and the 6 for 62. Greg Vellante in his past 5 away matches, he has taken 36 points, averaging 7.2 points per match. He bowls out of Academy Lanes in Haverhill, Massachusetts in the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, Class D North Division 4, both this season and last. There's Greg with a 5 drop. One, 2, 4, 7, 8. He'll poke the 4. So this will be a guaranteed 6 box with a potential for a 10 box for Greg Vellante. One, 2 pocket, nice shot. Maybe the 7 pin if that wood has momentum. It'll be a 9 box. 71 after 7 for Greg. Greg Vellante in his past 5 home matches, he has taken 32 points versus 36 on the road. Averages 6.4 points per his past 5 home matches. So he's had some better performance on the road very recently. There's a 5-5 Cleary right side for Greg. 1, 3, 6, 8, 10. The 3. And for the 10 box, Greg will take a 7. Taking out the 6 in the 3rd ball for 78 and 8. And if he'll permit me, Scott Perry has a documentary called No Questions Asked. Scott Perry put a lot of effort into this and did a lot of his cinematography work and editing, featuring the behind-the-scenes look at Candlepins for Cancer, the work of Al Johnson and Paul Grant. Go check it out on Perry Harlow Media on Facebook and YouTube. Documentary No Questions Asked. That's the 5, the 7, and the 8 for Greg Vellante, with a 7 drop and a split. Oh boy, it's cold outside. Door just opened to the right of me. Chilly draft. 5 and 7 for Greg. He'll poke the 5 and leave the 7 for a 9 box. 87 in 9 for Mr. Greg Vellante. That's a Rob Gronkowski in 9. 185 grand total so far with 1 box to go before we conclude the second game for Greg Vellante. With Scott Perry waiting in the wings on a 46.5. 7 drop for Greg. Isosceles triangle 189. Promising wood in the center. Greg's analyzing the angle of that front wood. Greg's been averaging 6.3 on the first ball. That's a great first ball average. And Greg goes to take the triangle. The elongated isosceles triangle leaves the 9. Deflected from the wood slightly. This will be for a 10. Greg takes that 10. 97 game 2. That's a two-game total of 195 for Greg Vellante through a 98 in the first and 97 in the second. 2 for 10 in the head pin with 1 split, 1 mark this game in the third box with a 7 fill, and 2 10 boxes. That's the story for Greg Vellante with 8 for 20 on the head pin with 4 splits. Turning it back over to Perry on lane 23 to finish out the second game. Here's Scott to the right of the head pin. 1, 2, 4, 7. Perry just misses the head pin a little off to the left. The 2 and the 4 are taken out. The 1 and the 7 stand. Eight box for Scott Perry. That'll be 54 after 6. Scott Perry averages 9.7 points per away match and 7.2 points per home match. So similar to Greg Vellante, Scott Perry does a little bit better on the road compared to home right now. Might have another thing we might have to check out with the pin reset or whatever. So anyways, I know it says link in description. I just realized I forgot to put the link in the description. I will put that in the description as soon as I can after the match. But yes, so Scott Perry has been working on this documentary called No Questions Asked, as mentioned before, and that dovetails into Candlepins for Cancer as well. Here's the info about Candlepins for Cancer coming up on your screen here in just a moment. That's Al Johnson in the photo on the left in the blue, and Paul Grant in the red on the right. That was from the Big 20 Bowling Center in Scarborough, Maine, about a year and some change ago, for one of many Candlepins for Cancer roll-offs. And they do a great job running a great charity that is Candlepin bowler-centric. It's great for, they've been working with anyone in the Candlepin bowling community that is in need of cancer treatments and financial assistance, all of that. And it's also a great bowling tournament as well, because it kind of melds competition along with philanthropy. So all of this makes for a great organization, Candlepins for Cancer. Scott Perry has got you covered in terms of the behind-the-scenes looks and interviews and whatnot, so do check out his documentary. But that's the story with Candlepins for Cancer and Scott Perry's documentary, No Questions Asked, on Perry Harlow Media on YouTube and Facebook. We're still just waiting on a pin setter thingamahoosit. I think it is cleared up. Emphasis on think. Looks like the lane has reset just fine. I got the thumbs up from Scott, so we are good. Mr. Perry, 1-3 pocket. It's always after these long waits, he throws a great ball in the pocket. 7 drop, 4-7-8. And Perry's on the 7, a little bit too much on the 7, leaves the 4 and the 8. It'll be a 9. That's 63 in 7 for Mr. Scott Perry. Three boxes to go. Here's Scott to the left of the head pin. Bit of a washout. 1, 3, 6, 7, 9. It's a drop for those keeping score at home. 1, 7, 3, 6, 9. 1-3 pocket should take it. Starts with hitting the object pin though. One, 3, 6, 9 for a 10 box for Scott Perry with a 6 box guarantee. It's away on the head pin outside, dances around everything else. That's a 7 box, 70 through 8 for Scott. Scott Perry's recent performance, 16 strikes, 54 spares, and 65 tens in his recent 5 matches. His longest streak of matches, more than 500, has been 3 in a row this season. His longest streak of matches with 10 points or greater in a row has been 4. Now it's Scott Perry versus the isosceles triangle. 189. He's calling for a deadwood check. I think it's in, but never hurts to have someone take a look. I could tell you at Lakeside Lanes if it was in or out, but at Boutwell's I'm not entirely certain based on the lighting. I know at Leda Lanes I could tell you from like 30 feet away. At Lakeside I can tell you from, the foul line. At Boutwell's I'm not entirely sure. It looks like Megan Harlow is turning around. It looks like it is very much in play, so I think my assumption was correct on that one. There's usually a line, a very thin line drawn down there. You can't see it from back here on a zoom cam, but that will define if the pin is in or out of bounds. Cross over that line in any way, it's out of bounds. But that pin was not. And there is a spare. That was worth the wait for Scott Perry on the isosceles triangle. 80 in a bonus after 9. Watch this, 189 for Scott Perry. Played that, and that wood I was worried about, because if you cap that wood oddly, things will go wrong, but he made it work. Very well done. All right. Looks like we have another reset situation down there. If you are watching this and you have never gone Candlepin bowling before and you live within the vicinity of New England or perhaps maritime Canada on the eastern side, there's plenty of Candlepin bowling to be had. I'll focus on the U.S. side of things. Go to candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center. As you can see on the map, there's plenty of places to choose from. In Canada, there's also Moncton, New Brunswick. The fair lane's up there. We just had Worlds in November, so don't want to count them out either. But yes, do check out candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center. And this is only some of the bowling centers you can encounter in New England. Not everything's on the map. I even added an additional pin for a center that allegedly opened in Albany, New York from a year and some change ago. I forget who it was who informed me on that, but that center, I believe, should still be there. So you can even be in Albany, New York and still experience Candlepin bowling, an honorary New England sport for outside of New England. Okay, I think we're good. Lane is reset. Again, welcome back, Scott Perry. Working on a mark. Scott Perry on the 1-3, and that's a way to fill a mark. On the 1-3 pocket, at least the 4 and the 8. Perry on the 4-8 for the spare. He'll connect with the 8 and leave the 4. Perry for the 10. He's got the 10. Perry will take the second game by 1. He'll take it by 1, 98 to Greg Vellante's 97. That's a 238 two-game total for Scott Perry and a 195 two-game total for Greg Vellante. As of the end of the second game, Scott Perry leads in the total by 43, and he just squeaked out the 2 points, taking the second game by 1 with a 98. Came down to 1 pin, and he had to shoot 1 pin, and he did shoot 1 pin. Moving on to game 3. Here on the ACST, it'll be Greg Vellante up next. Top of game 3, our away bowler Greg Vellante from Academy Lanes in Haverhill, Massachusetts, here in Class D North on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. This busy Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire on this snowy afternoon. 1-3 pocket for Greg. It's the 2 and the 10. 4 and the 10, excuse me. A split of 8. Greg decides to play it safe, goes for the 10 pin first. It's not a bad idea if you just want to get pins and you know it's a hard shot. And look at that 10 box for Greg Vellante. Like I said, sometimes it's the winning move is the safe move sometimes. 10 after 1 for Greg. Because as you know, the previous game came down to 1 pin. That was how close it came. So moments like this matter. Greg Vellante on lane 23. 4 pocket. Drops 6. One 6 8-10 for Greg. And he'll deflect off a piece of wood, a little off target. And Greg will nudge the head pin down and take a 7. For 17 in the second box. Greg Vellante, in case you missed it, 68-58 season record. He's bowled 9 matches out of this 18-match regular season. 36-34 on the road. 32-24 at home. The ACST is an 18-match regular season with playoff brackets, similar to the NFL. If you're familiar with how the NFL does its playoff picture, that's kind of how we do it in the ACST for the most part. There are classes and divisions, Class A, B, C, D, and E, North and South. 4 divisions per class, except for Class E, which I believe is only 2 divisions, if my memory serves. Greg missed the spare, and he'll take an out of 9. Leaving the head pin, that's 26 after 3 for Greg. And Greg's on the 1-2 pocket. He'll mix down 6. That's the 3, the 5, the 9, and the 10 pins. Here's Greg. Oops. And he's got the spare. My camera issues aside. It's still a spare. We'll give it to him. That's 36 and a bonus after 4 for Greg Vellante. 10-7-9 spare, 36 and a bonus. Greg Vellante is in good positioning to sit on a pretty good half. I always like to think if you're in the 50s, you're in a good place. Greg off to the right. That's a 3 fill. And on the outside, oh, and that's a nice recovery by Greg Vellante. Incredible shot. Now that's how you sit. That's 49 and a bonus after 5 for Greg Vellante. 2 marks in a row. That 3 fill is not going to matter too much because he's on another mark. 2 for 5 in the head move, 2 splits this half. 2 marks, 49 and a bonus for Greg Vellante. Halftime total at 244. Scott Perry coming in with a 238 total as he comes to start the third game. And here he is, Scott Perry. Scott Perry opens up with a 5 drop. 1, 2, 6, 8, 10. Perry looks to clean up. Leaves the 1 and the 10. Was a little off the object target pin. On the 1 and the 10, third ball, misses slightly to the right of the 1. That's an 8 box for Scott Perry, 8 after 1. In the ACST, there's a maximum of 14 available points per match. 2 points are awarded to the winner of each game. We call them strings in Candlepin. The bowler whose cumulative total is the highest results in an additional 4 points awarded. A tie in a string will reward each bowler 1 point. A tie in total pinfall will reward 2 points to each bowler. Here's Scott Perry. Off to the right, drops 6, 1, 2, 4, 7. For classes A through D, 8 bowlers in each conference go to the playoffs. 4 division winners will be seeded 1 through 4 based on record. 4 wildcard winners will be seeded 5 through 8 based on record. Playoff matches are based on total pinfall instead of points. Class E has slightly different rules just because of a different pool of bowlers, different number compared to the others, just a different assembly of the divisions. And that's another 8 box for Scott, and that's 16 after 2. In case you missed it, Greg Vellante is at 49 and a bonus after 5 with two marks at the end. Boxes 4 and 5. And there's Scott on the 1-3 pocket, leaves the 4 and the 10. Similar to Greg's dilemma. I'd play the 4 on the second ball no matter what. Left side of the 4. Third ball, then pick your favorite pin. Yep, just like that. It was a good try by Scott, just a little bit hard on it. You have to go even more riskier and go even more to the left of that pin to nudge it to the right. Or you have to hope there's some zhuzh on your ball with a spin or something. But he can still pin this out, and he does. I think that will be good. Well, it's a bowler's call. I'll stay out of it. It's been marked as a 10 for 26 after 3. Difference of 20 in the total pinfall with Scott Perry behind by 2 boxes. Total pinfall is not that big of a difference as of right now. Greg Vellante can still easily take it back. Scott Perry will split 6 on the 1-3 pocket. That's a 2, 4, 7, 10. Scott Perry with 1 strike, 8 spares, and 4 tens so far today. 57% in terms of boxes that were 10 or higher. He's averaging 6.15 on the first ball. And 6.13 for Greg Vellante. Both bowlers having a great first ball experience. Pretty much going over 6 is usually real good. Two 7-10 for Scott Perry. And he'll make it an 8 box. That's 34 after 4 for Scott. Scott Perry, final box of the first half of the third game to take us to halftime. 1-2 pocket, 3, 4, 6 for Scott. Perry takes the 6, leaves the 3 and the 4. It'll be an 8, 9, or 10. Scott Perry will go markless this half. Oh, and a nice 10 box. That's a great out. 44 after 5 for Scott Perry. Greg Vellante season opening 49 and a bonus after 5 with an open mark. Scott Perry did not throw a mark this half. He went 3 for 5 in the head pin. All 3 of those head pin shots were splits. 3 8 boxes, 2 10 boxes for 44 after 5. Halftime total of 282 for Scott Perry and a halftime total of 244 for Greg Vellante. To check you in, Scott Perry has 4 points. Greg Vellante has 2 so far. Here's Greg on the 1-3 pocket. Mixes down 7, 2-4-7. And that's a good fill of 7. That's 56 after 5 for Greg. And he'll spare that up as well. That's a good spare on spare. In fact, that's his 3rd mark in a row. Triple spare for Greg Vellante, 66 in a bonus after 6. Let's watch this again, 2-4-7. And was right on it, just had to mow him down. Capping that wood was a little scary. In some houses that may not work, but it works at Boutwell's. And here's Greg, he'll fill with 6 again. 1, 3, 6, and 8. Greg's on the 8 pin and only the 8 pin. No 4th mark in a row. Greg will take the remaining 3 pins out for a 10 box. That's 82 after 7. Greg Vellante having a game. 5 for 7 on the perfect boxes this game. 3 for 7 on the head pin, 2 splits. Greg is to the left of the head pin, but still 6 pins go down. That vicinity of the 6 in the first ball average is still holding up pretty good. 1-3-6-9 for Greg with a 6 up, and that is spareable. 6.2 first ball average for Greg. And that's a spare. He's got another one. 92 after 8, plus a fill for Greg Vellante. 1-3-6-9. And I think he took some edge off his ball, and I think that's improving his accuracy, and that's really working on the outside of the head pin in that shot. Wow, nice. Greg Vellante is working on another spare. 1-3 pocket. Oh, and see, I think he pushed a little bit too hard there. That's a 4 drop. That's a pack of 5 on the left, and then the 10. Two, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10 for Greg Vellante with no wood. 96 after 8 with that fill going in. And Vellante will shave a few off. That's a difficult shot to make, even if you're on the head pin. Sometimes things just don't work out. 7, 8, 9, or 10 for Greg. 5, 7, 10 leave for a 7 box. That's 103 and 9 for Mr. Greg Vellante. Greg's over average this game. Was just slightly under average in games 1 and 2 with a 98 and 97. He's now at 103 over his normal average, and he still has 1 box to go, 298 and counting. That will put his average over 100 at least. 1, 7, 10, 3, 4, 9 for Greg. It's a 4 drop. Greg fires. Oh, on the 3. I thought that had a chance of crossing over the kind of tailed and curved to the right. So he's just looking to get pins here. Not a bad out. That's 8. 111 is what Greg Vellante has. That's his final score for game 3. For a 3-game total of 306 for Greg Vellante, a 4 mark, 111, 3 for 10 on the head pin with 2 splits. No strikes, 6 spares, 7 tens, 43% perfects for Greg Vellante today. 36 extra pins off of fills, average 6 on each mark fill. He's bowled 152 on lane 23 and 154 on lane 24. So mostly even. Lane 24 slightly has the edge, but it's been pretty fair between lane to lane. Scott Perry now looks to respond. He's at 44 after 5, no marks, 3 for 5 in the head pin with 3 splits this game, 282 halftime total. Perry drops 3, 4, 7, 8. Taken out. And on the 1-3 pocket, Scott Perry will clean up for a spare. 54 after 6 for Scott Perry. Not a problem on that 3-drop. Made the correction on the second ball. Was on the 1-3 pocket on the inside, and it took everything out. 54 after 6 plus a ball. That'll put him in the 60s in 6. Greg Vellante's in the 70s in 6. That's a 3 fill for Scott. That puts him at 57 after 6. And Perry just to the left of the head pin. 1-8-6-10 leave. 6-box guarantee with a 10-box he's going to shoot for. And that's a nice out of 8 for Mr. Scott Perry. That's 65 in 7 now. Scott Perry, for the first time today, finds himself trailing Greg Vellante in a game. 65 to Greg Vellante's 82 in the 7th, with 3 boxes to go. Grand total pinfall is within 3, where Scott Perry is 3 boxes behind. We'll still have a manageable lead, but that has shrunk a little bit since the second game. Perry is on the 1-3 pocket. That'll help. 7-drop, 2-4-6. Perry will poke the 2, a little full, leaving the goalposts, the 4 and the 6. And field goal, we won't give him 3 points, but how about 8 for 73 in the 8th for Scott Perry? Trailing by 23 to Greg Vellante. Looks like we might need to pause once again for another lane adventure. Here's the ACST match format in case you're unfamiliar with this. We're currently just about to finish the 3rd game of 5. It's a 5-string match, 18 matches in the regular season. Each bowler bowls 5 boxes at a time, 14 points possible up for grabs in every game, or every match that is. You might see splits like maybe 14-0, maybe 12-2, 8-6, 10-4. These are usually kind of the most common splits that you usually see. And like we spoke about before earlier, the top 8 in each class and region make the playoffs with 4 wildcards based on points. If you pay attention to the NFL's playoff brackets, the ACST bracket is very similar. We'll start talking more about playoff pictures and playoff implications maybe in another 1 or 2 months or so. Matches are bowled asynchronously in the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, so we can't say for certain who is in and who is out. It's a lot harder to kind of determine because bowlers kind of schedule their matches as they can. So not everything is perfectly in sync week to week in the NFL. Here comes Scott Perry. 1-3 pocket, 5-7 leave. Getting a pin check, but I could tell you that pin is in. No doubt in my mind about that. Scott Perry will play that wood on the 5. That's a difficult shot in any case. He'll leave the 7. You probably would have had to play that wood from an edge, probably from the right side cap. Perry will go for an out, but he'll leave the 7 pin for a 9 box. That's 82 and 9. Scott Perry currently at 320, Greg Vellante at 306. Greg Vellante threw a 111 game 3, and Scott Perry is at 82. And it looks like we will have some more time to do a little business with you. Let's see. Have we talked about some other people in the Candlepin bowling world that you should definitely follow, subscribe, or check out? I don't believe we've spoken about these folks just yet. Do check out the Ripping the Rack podcast. They're on Facebook and YouTube. I believe they might be on a slight break right now, but they still have plenty of old episodes you can check out where they do bunches of analyses for Worlds and other such events. They talk about some of the pro bowlers in the scene and Candlepin bowling and all that kinds of stuff. Cross borders, U.S. and Canada, because I know Calvin Locke is on call most of the time in that podcast. So do check out Ripping the Rack on YouTube and Facebook, whichever your preference. There's also another podcast known as The Approach on Facebook as well. I don't believe they have a YouTube channel unless I haven't found it yet. Tony Levesque has a YouTube and TikTok page, so do check his content out. He does a lot of more short-form content in the vertical video format, and so does Charlie Collins on TikTok, so do check them out. All right, we are back. Welcome back. Scott Perry. 1-2 pocket for Scott Perry. Drops 9, leaves the 5 pin, the king pin. Single pin spare opportunity for Scott Perry. No wood, high noon ball. Goes off to the left. Greg Vellante will take a heck of a third game, and Scott Perry will take a 9-box. That's 329. 3-game total for Scott Perry. That's a 91 third game. And Greg Vellante, 306. That 111 third game. 3 games down, 2 to go. 2 exciting games here at the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. We'll be setting up for Game 4 here in just a moment. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. I'm happy you're here on this snowy Sunday afternoon at Boutwell's Bowling Center. Very packed place. We're kind of positioned by one of the entrances, and it is one heck of a busy house. People have been coming and going all day here. Literally right now, someone is walking in. Here's Greg Vellante. He'll mix a few, dropping 5. He'll take a few more as the 189 for Greg. One and 9 for Greg on the third ball, and it looks like the debris has cleared. That will be an 8-box in the first for Greg Vellante. Greg drops 7. 3, 5, 6. Takes the 5, leaves the 3 and the 6. Nine for Greg. 17 after 2. Greg Vellante, our away bowler from Academy Lanes in Haverhill, Massachusetts. I've covered him a few times before. Those matches should be available on 3-Ball Spare on YouTube if you want to check those out. Greg on the 1-2 pocket. Lightly but surely a 5-drop. 3, 5, 6, 9, 10. And, oh, man. So if he was right on the pin, that would have gone. But he was awkwardly to the left of the 3 and a little on the wood and got some strange action. He leaves the 9 and the 10, shooting for an 8, 9, or 10 box. It's going to be a 9 box. That's 26 after 3 for Greg Vellante. Greg Vellante, 3rd place in his division, 5th in the wild card seedings. If you're not a division leader, you got to fight for the wild cards. And Greg is in 5th place right now. Does a little bit better, he'll be in the dance come playoff time. Greg mixes down 4. One, 7, 10, 3, 6, 8. And on the 1-3 pocket, that was a nice ball, and actually everything but one pin goes down after some delayed action. He leaves the 8. For the 10 box, Greg will take a 9. That's 35 after 4. Greg Vellante averaging a 1.8 for the season. On the road, he's averaging 100.2 on the nose. And he's been basically doing that, just a little bit under for the first 2 games, but only by like 2 or 3 pins. He'll drop 6 here. He'll go, nope, he won't go markless just yet. We'll put a pin in that, per se. Pun intended. 1-3-6-10 lead for Greg. Here's the spare shot attempt. It's away. Okay, now he'll go markless this half. He was just a little bit off the head pin, just ever so slightly off. It's going to be a 9 for Greg. 4 9s and an 8. That puts him at 44 after 5. Your score check-in, it's currently 350, 3.5 games in for Greg Vellante with 4 9s and an 8 box. He went 2 for 5 in the head pin, no splits, 98, 97, 100, and a 44 in progress, 4th game. Scott Perry with a 140, a 98, a 91, and he's going to start out his Game 4 journey in just a couple of seconds here when we return on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. And here is Scott. 1-3 pocket. 2-7-10. Good prospects for a spare. I like the wood. I like the setup. Fire on the 2 at the right angle. Misses it slightly off to the left. Leaves the 2 in the 10. And it becomes an 8 box for Scott Perry, 8 after 1. Perry's on the 1-2, and he'll split 7. It's the 5-6-10. Five, 6, 10 leave. You can try to play the 5. You can try to play the 6 off the right sidewall. And that will be a -1 for Scott Perry. That was into the gutter and came out, so that will be 1 off, I believe. Bowler's call, but I definitely saw it. It'll be an 8 box, I believe, for Scott Perry. That will be 16 after 2. Yes. Checking in with y'all. Yeah, you can see me, I'm sure. Hope you're enjoying this match. I'm Steve Kelly on the call again. Great to have you along with us here at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire for the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Class D North, Greg Vellante versus Scott Perry, and Scott Perry is ready to fire for box number 3 of Game 4. On the head pin, 4 drops, spread for Scott Perry. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10. The traditional academic spread eagle. And Perry will take the 3 and the 6 on the eagle and leave the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 7. And he'll make it a 7 box, 23 after 3 for Scott, who's gone perfect on the head pin this game. But he's also gone perfect on splits this game. Scott Perry, 52% on the head pins, 17 for 33. 11 splits, still averaging great first ball average of 6.1, while Greg Vellante has dropped a little bit to 5.9. Here's Scott Perry on lane 24. Perry 1-3 pocket. That's a good ball, and it's a good spare setup with the 10 pin only standing. Perry, yes, he's got it. And he wanted that one. After a bit of a drought of marks, he's figuring it out. 33 and a bonus after 4 for Scott. Perfect on the head pin this half still. Finally breaking the curse of splits, though, with this 9 drop on the 10 pin, and he was all over it, staying on. He was happy about that. Lane 24 at Boutwell's Bowling Center. Scott Perry fires on the strike, spare fill, that is. A big 19 and leaving the 4 fill. 4 pin. 4 pin, 9 fill. 42 after 4. 5 for 5 on the head pin. That is remarkable. And Scott Perry, another single pin. Gotcha. Another shootout. 52 and a bonus after 5 for Scott Perry. Figuring things out in boxes 4 and 5, and definitely figuring the head pin out. 8, 8, 7 spare, 9 spare. 52 and a bonus for Scott Perry in the 5th. Of halfway through the 4th game, as Greg Vellante is 44 after 5. Midway through the 4th game. 350 for Greg Vellante, 381 for Scott Perry. Scott Perry is ahead by 31 in the total and 8 in the string. Here's Greg. Just a little bit off the head pin. 1, 3, 6, 7 drop. And Greg will take the 3 and the 6 and leave the head pin. And that's a 9 for Greg. That's 53 after 6. And fun fact, that's his 5th 9 box in a row. That's 5 9s of service for Greg Vellante. And if you get that joke, I'm really happy for you. Greg Vellante will wash out 3. 6-pack right in the 7. And Greg Vellante, 1-3 pocket. Wash out, so what? Let's wash out the washout. Wash the spare, 63 after 7 plus a fill for Greg Vellante. That was a great conversion on that spare. Let's see, was that Manhattan side? It was the Manhattan side, technically. It didn't cross over, even though it was pretty much dead center down just ranging in the pocket vicinity. And on the spare fill, oh my goodness, I thought the 9 was going to fall into the 5. That'll be an 8 fill for Greg Vellante. A great ball. It's the 5-9 down there with a piece of wood. The piece of wood could be tricky. Greg, oh yeah, see, that was the tricky part. It's like you can hit it, but if you hit it just slightly at the wrongest, that's not a word, at an angle that is incorrect, it won't go. But he'll make the most of it with a 10 box. That's 81 through 8 for Greg Vellante now with a 10 on a spare. He has 1 mark, 1 10 boxes, and 5 9s in the bank. 387 currently. 3.8 games in out of 5 for Greg Vellante. He's 3 for 8 on the head pin this game with no splits. Here comes Greg to the left of the head pin, drops 7, 1, 3, 3. And he'll take the 3 and the 6 and leave the head pin. Ends up being a 10 box. 91 through 9. Greg Vellante, he's been getting better and better each string. Well, the second game notwithstanding, but from the 3rd game onward, he's kind of found his footing here, which is good. The 3rd game is a good place to kind of turn it around. Vellante to the right of the head pin, he'll take 3 out. Outside, and another spare. Beautiful shot by Greg, and that is going to put him in a great positioning for 101 and a bonus. Oh, this is a great shot. Greg Vellante has been coming out with these clutch shots as of recently. The outside of that head pin on the Manhattan side, but it was an outside hit. Let's fill this mark and fill it good. Well, it was good-ish. That's a 3 fill for Greg. Took even me a second. It's funny when you forget how to count for like a couple of seconds. That's a 104 for Greg Vellante. That is confirmed for a 4-game total of 410, 98, 97, 111, and 104 for Greg Vellante. Went 3 for 10 in the head pin with 2 10 boxes and 2 spares, 5 9s, and an 8 box. Scott Perry is coming back up to the approaches with a double spare and 52 plus a bonus. He's working on a mark when we come back. Scott Perry working on a spare. Takes 6 out. 1 3 6 9. $58 after 5. Outside shot and a spare. Scott Perry with a triple spare. 68 and a bonus for Scott Perry. Let's take a look at this. 169. Looks like the lane's not resetting, so we'll have to wait a little extra. So we'll watch this a couple of times. Look at that. So that was a great shot on the outside of the head pin. And let's see, did that cross over? Let's watch this ball. It started on the right side of the lane, just slightly crossed over. So that is considered a side hit based on the orientation of your throw. And if it crosses over, it didn't cross over a lot, but it did kind of go over the center guide. So great one for Scott Perry. All right, we're still just waiting on the whole reset situation. So in case you missed it before, we're at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. That's actually, that front entrance in that shot is actually where I'm sitting, just a couple feet to the left of it. And it's a great house. It's hosted Mixed Worlds last summer. That's why there's still some signage up there. And they've also had some Candlepins for Cancer roll-offs and tapings here. So it's a lot of great decor. They just leave it up because it looks really cool. Kind of gives you some energy, thinking like, hey, it's a TV house. And as of recently, Boutwell's Bowling Center has had a lot of attention in that regard. Run by the Dellases, great house, looks great, plays great. Come check it out if you're in Concord, New Hampshire, in the capital. Scott Perry, 1-3 pocket, and he'll take a strike. His 4th mark in a row. A big 20. 88 and a bonus after 7. After having a bit of a down previous game, he's really figuring this out now. And watch this. Strike thrown so fast, we were still in the B-roll. Look at that. That was on the 1-2 pocket, another crossover ball. Great shot by Scott Perry. So that's 4 marks in a row for Scott. 88 and a bonus after 7. The only non-headpin shot was in the 6th frame. Perfect otherwise. 6 for 7. 3 splits. 417 and counting. 88 and counting. Let's go. Perry fires. Ooh, okay. Well, that was way better than it looked like it was going to be. He actually hit the 4 and the 7, and he mixed and spun and held everything down except for the 1 and the 10. So he's got 8 so far on the strike fill. Let's see if he can figure this out. Scott Perry. Okay, that will be an 8 fill on the strike. It had to end at some point. It always does. But that's still not bad for 96 after 7. Ends up being an 8 box. 104 is the offboarding for that tear of marks. 104 after 8 for Scott Perry. Compare that to 81 after 8 for Greg Vellante. Scott Perry leading by 23 in the total, 2 boxes behind Greg Vellante. And he's considerably ahead of Greg in the 8th box. He's actually at Greg Vellante's game 4 total at 104. 2 boxes to go, so Scott Perry should be able to secure an additional 2 points here in game 4. And I believe we might, I don't know if the lane's not resetting again, something like that. You guys know it by this point. Just lane 23 has had its Had some challenges today. Let's see, what more can I tell you about Boutwell's Bowling Center? So the way the house plays, we can talk a little bit about that. So Boutwell's Bowling Center, I kind of call it like a medium difficulty. I would say it is an easier house than Lakeside, but in different ways. I know at Lakeside you really have to hit your targets, and you can't really rely on like moving deadwood or sliding decks or anything like that. At Boutwell's you get a lot more sliding action, but you can get a lot of weirder leaves or pins that will wiggle and wiggle a lot but not really fully fall down. So it's sort of a trade-off, and I think the trade-offs are largely equal. It's kind of like pick your poison. And depending on what kind of bowler you are, it's going to kind of either help you or hinder you. You'll be either a hamburger helper or hamburger hinderer. I don't know which one it's going to be. Anyways, we have a lane resetting now, so we should be good. And for Scott Perry to keep going. That is Dino Dellis this time. We've had Dimitri Dellis go down there. We've just had a cast of characters run down there to help us today. We had Sean Shattuck go down there at one point. He was my teammate in Worlds this past November. And there is a 4-drop for Scott Perry. Or excuse me, a 1-drop on the 4-pin, if we want to be specific, and some call that a lemon drop. Paul Grant. On the lemon drop spare, Scott Perry takes a few more out. 7-10, 5-6-3. And a great out, considering what he was dealt with. 9 box, 113 and 9 with 1 to go. Piling defense for the total, taking a lead of 9 in the string plus another box. Probably a double-digit lead for Scott Perry by the end of this. 410 Greg Vellante, 442 plus this next frame for Scott Perry. As he fires on the 1-3. Doesn't cross over, but he mixes 8. Oh, sorry. In my mind, I clicked the left lane. Physically, I clicked the right lane. It's the leave of the 2 and the 5. Two-5 lead for Scott Perry for the spare. Goodbye. That's another mark for Scott Perry. 123 and counting. Have a look at this. Would you look at that? As Chris Bover would say. 2-5. Right on it, right in between them. And that's how you get a spare. Beautiful shot by Scott Perry. Again, stalling for time once more. Just waiting for the lane to reset again. Why not say hello to... That's Dino Dellis again. Getting his steps in today for sure. I think it's just something with a breaker or something that must be having some difficulty not breaking. The breaker is breaking on lane 23. It's 123 and a bonus for Scott Perry. How many marks has he had in this game? He's had 5 marks. He's had 2 strikes, 13 spares, and 5 tens. 50% perfect boxes, but the pile of spares for Scott Perry that he's just been able to string together, that's big. Currently his favorite lane appears to be lane 24 as opposed to lane 23. He's not fully done on lane 23, but as of right now he's thrown 219 on lane 23 and 233 on lane 24. It'll be slightly above 219 on lane 23. Okay. Just waiting on a couple of things. Don't mind that. It's a busy bowling alley. You like to see busy bowling alleys, and we're more than willing to accommodate for that, so no worries at all. Scott Perry's working on a mark fill, and he'll drop 6. And that's a fill of 6. That will be the end of game 4 for Scott Perry. That will be, I'm just waiting on the official code for that, 6 for 129. That is confirmed. That's a 458 four-game total for Scott Perry with that 129. And Greg Vellante with a 104 for a four-game total of 410. Scott Perry took the fourth game by 25 and leads in the total by 48. It's been a banner day for Scott Perry in particular. Back, we'll have Greg Vellante coming back to start out the fifth and final game in this 5-game series on the ACST. I'm Steve Kelly on the mic. Great to have you along. Let's have ourselves a great Game 5 here, shall we? Starting now. Vellante on the 1-3 pocket. Yep, like I said, let's have a game. 5-9. 8 drop. For the spare, he's right on the 5, but a little bit too full on the 5 and leaves the 9. On lane 23 at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. Greg Vellante shooting for a 10 box. And it will be a 9. 9 after 1 for Greg. If you're just tuning in, this is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, a season-long series of one-on-one 1v1 Candlepin bowling matches between challengers organized into classes and divisions competing for playoff contention. This is the unofficial additional Winter Olympic sport. We are playing a sport in the winter in New England. NBC, take notice. 8 drop for Greg Vellante. 3-7. Greg misses the object, takes the 7 by proxy of the wood, leaves the 3-pin. And a nice targeted 10 box for Greg Vellante. 19 after 2. Greg Vellante today, he is yet to throw a strike, but he has 8 spares and 10 tens. 47 bonus pins off of fills. He averages 5.88 per mark fill as of right now. Compare that to Scott Perry's 6.4 mark fill average. 4 drop and a 6-pack right side for Greg Vellante. We ID at Boutwell's Bowling Center at the bar. Do check it out if you're here. The 6-pack brought to you by the bar at Boutwell's Bowling Center. $1-5-9 for Greg Vellante on the spare attempt. He's shooting for a 10 box with a 7 box guarantee. And he's all over the head pin. Ooh, and he comes back to take the 5, and the 9 is left for a 9 box. 28 after 3 for Greg Vellante, the Atlanta Falcons New England Patriots number. Speaking of which, the Super Bowl is tomorrow. But I got to tell you something. The most exciting game is not going to be the Super Bowl. It's going to be Mark Poirier versus Kristen Poirier. Tomorrow at Boutwell's Bowling Center around noontime. I will be covering that match. So I hope to see you right back here tomorrow, probably the same time-ish, for the true Super Bowl. I will be moderating the marital conflict between Mark Poirier and Kristen Poirier. It's going to be a great one. They are both pumped for this match. I'm pumped for this match. It's going to be a blast. And both of them are bowling great in the ACST in Class E North, so we're going to have an exciting match tomorrow. I hope you tune in to check it out. Same place here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook. That's a 9 box for Greg Vellante. That's 37 after 4. 9, 10, 9, 9 for Greg. He's off the headpin to the left and takes 6 out, 1, 3, 6, 8. And Greg for the spare, he leaves the head pin, leaves the object pin. Nine box for Greg Vellante, 4 9s and a 10. That puts him at 46 after 5. Here's your check-in, 4.5 games in for Greg Vellante. He's at 456 with a 98, a 97, a 111, a 104, and he's thrown a 46 half in the 5th game with 2 for 5 on the head pin and 1 split. 40% of the perfect boxes, totaling 47 bonus pins off of fills, averaging 5.88 per mark. 36% head pin completion percentage for Greg Vellante today with 7 splits, 6.06 first ball average. And when we come back, it'll be Scott Perry to start out on lane 24 for the final first half of the day here in Game 5 of the ACST. Scott Perry off to the right on the 3-6. I mean, sorry, the 6-10 was even more to the right. That's a 2-drop for those keeping score at home. Scott Perry in the 1-2 pocket, and he'll spare up that 2-drop. That is more than one time today we've seen that happen. First ball jitters, second ball success for Scott Perry. This. Just hit the pocket and throw the equivalent of a strike ball. Now you just have to make that second ball the first ball, and you'll be really in business. But look at that spare by Scott Perry. Lane 24. 10 after 1 and a bonus. Scott's working on a spare. And he'll play Pot of Greed. That allows him to draw 2 pins from the plate. That's a 2 fill for Scott Perry. That's 12 after 2. 12 after 1, excuse me. And, well, right on the head pin, but a little bit too full off the head pin. 4, 6, 3, 7 leave. And Scott will take 3, maybe 4. The 7 pin, thinking about it, it's going to stay for a 9. That's 21 after 2 for Scott. It's away. Scott Perry on the 1-2 pocket. A big hit and a big drop of 8. 6-10 with a piece of wood across both. Perry. Oh, and unfortunately that is going to be an 8 box as that went into the gutter and came out as a foul, unfortunately. That's going to be 29 after 3 for Scott. We've all been there. We've had those moments. I think I did that at least once in Worlds where it was just a gimme and the ball just goes into another dimension. Perry, 1-2 pocket, and that was a weird leave, and that is not even a split. That's a 5 drop. That's the 5, the 6, the 8, the 9, and the 10. That's a mini rack minus its head pin. Perry, oh, pretty spare, nice shot. Oh, I love when those go because, yeah, you just have to hit a pocket in just a very peculiar way, and that's how it will go. That's 39, a bonus after 4 for Scott Perry. Look at this. He played the 5 and the 8 and cut right into the sidewall almost perfectly horizontally, which is exactly what you wanted that 5 pin to do. I've seen Corrado Pani make that shot too, but just 1 pin fewer. And he's on the head pin here. Scott Perry fills with 7, 3, 6, 10. .46 after 4. Perry, yeah. Okay, that's not quite the way I thought that was going to go, but hey, it still went. If you hit them, you hit them, and if they go, they go. That's a spare for Scott Perry. That's 56 and a bonus after 5 with 3 marks. 5-14 and counting for Scott Perry, pending a fill. 140, 98, 91, and 129 for Scott Perry, and that puts him at 5-14 with a 56 half plus a fill. Greg Vellante currently at 46 and a bonus with 456. 5 boxes to go for both bowlers. When we come back, it's going to be Greg Vellante on lane 24. And here we are. Greg off to the left of the head pin, and he drops 5. 1, 7, 10, 3, 9. Little direct on the head pin, leaves the 3 and the 7. Piece of wood rolling to the 7. And Vellante, he'll play some pinball, and he'll leave the 3 pin for a 9 box. That's at 55 after 6 for Greg Vellante. He's been hunting for a mark this game, and he's still in the hunt for that mark. He has 4 boxes to go. Greg, 1-3 pocket, little full hit, 4, 5, 2, 10. Triangle on the 10. 6 drop, split. Greg. Oh, nice way to play it. But the 5 pin stands tall. Ends up being a 9 box for Greg. That's 64 after 7. And Greg's off to the right of the head pin. He mixes what appears to be 6. 7 pin is holding on. 1, 7, 10, 2. And the jack plus the 2. The 10 pin is wiggling, and he touched them all, but the 10 pin doesn't fly. 10 pin is grounded. That'll be a 9 box for Greg. That was a great effort. And he's just stuck in 9 box land by the looks of it. 73 after 8. He's thrown 7 9 boxes this game. Intercepted only by a 10. Interrupted only by a 10. Greg Vellante in the 1-3 pocket. He drops all but the 5 pin, the king pin, 9 drop. And Greg, oh, he's just a little off target, hits the wood, but the wood isn't in the path of the 5 pin. And Greg will make it a 9 box. It's 82 in 9. Another 9 for Greg. He's he's thrown 8 9 boxes this game. I'm rooting for him for a mark, I'm telling you. But the 9 boxes are strong this game for Greg. Greg will take the 4 and the 7 out on the first ball. 2 drop. Final first ball average of the day for Greg Vellante is 5.96 today. For the spare, and he's not going to get it. He'll leave the 1, the 2, the 6, the 8, and the 10. And it's a nice 10 box, so it's not a 9 box, it's a second 10 box. And Greg Vellante, what a heck of a game. A lot of 9s and 2 10s for a 92. That's consistency for you. Greg Vellante went 4 for 10 in the head pin with 2 splits. Final mark tally today, no strikes, 8 spares, 11 10s, 38 perfect. 38% perfect box percentage, that is. 47 off of fills, averaging 5.88 per mark. Went 18 for 50 on the head pin. Did better on lane 24 than lane 23. 260 on lane 24 and 242 on lane 23. And we'll now turn it back over to Scott Perry to close out the day here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I hope you enjoyed this match today. We've had a couple of mechanical things going on the lanes, but we worked through it. We made it to the final 5 boxes. We're on lane 23 with Scott Perry, our home bowler, to close things out. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. This is the Atlanta Candlepin Singles Tour. If you're just joining us, I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want to see more, there's plenty more. There's a 6-fill for Scott Perry, by the way. You can check out the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on Facebook, the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour page on YouTube. My content is 3-Ball Spare on YouTube as well as Facebook. You can also check out Candlepin Bowling Network on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And Scott Perry will take 2 and leave 2. And, of course, we talked about all the other pages earlier. You can check all those out as well. Plenty of Candlepin bowling content to be had. There's a nice 10 box for Scott Perry for 72 after 6. He's thrown 3 spares and 110. And in fact, I don't even know if I even played you the replay for that spare before. I think I have it queued up. Yeah, look at this. This was a great one. Actually, we did play it, but still, I want to just highlight this because I think this is probably the best spare of the game. Like, that was just such a great one. And we're waiting for a lane reset, so that gives us some convenient time to watch this again. This is a shot where I saw Corrado Pani in the Friday Night Pro League in Exeter. He played this shot, except it was just the 5, the 6, the 9, and the 10. And he played the 6 and the 9 pocket to take them all out, to leverage the right sidewall. But Scott Perry played more to the left. He played the 5 and the 8 pocket to cut right. Just to give you an idea, those shots are not impossible. You just have to know where to hit them. There's a 5 drop for Scott Perry. Scott outside of the head pin, and on you were hit. The 9 pin, you have got to be kidding me. I thought that was a spare for sure. That is insane. That should have been a spare. That was a great shot. On the outside of the head pin, that's how you hit him. And that will be a 9 for Scott Perry. That's 81 and 7. Scott Perry has the total already. He has it by at least 37 and counting with 3 boxes to go. He's closing in on the string. He's down by 11, but he's got 3 boxes to get there. It looks like, I think tentatively, I think Scott Perry is going to take 12 points. But we won't say for certain till the end. That's just my unofficial calculations here. He only lost the 3rd game, 91 to Greg Vellante's 111. And then every other game has been, oh no, I'm sorry, the 4th game as well. So it will be 4 points for Greg Vellante, at least. So it's probably going to be a 10-4 split, my guess. These next 3 boxes will confirm that. That's right, I forgot. Scott Perry threw an 81 in the 4th, and Greg Vellante threw a 92 in the 4th. So Greg Vellante does at least have 4 points. And lane 23 has just reset, so we're good. Scott Perry has 3 marks this game. He's gone 4 for 7 on the head pin. He has no splits this game yet. His first game was his best so far, a 140, and then he had a 129 in the 4th. Scott Perry, 1-3 pocket, nice ball. 8 drop, 5-9. Perry on the 5-9 for a spare, and oh, he's just a little bit off. Just a little bit to the right. Stayed on the right side with his right-handed release, didn't cross over. He's going to clean up for a 10. That's 91 after 8 for Scott Perry. 2 marks that could have gone. The one in the 7th frame really should have gone. In the 8th frame, it was left on the table. 91 and 8 for Scott Perry. Compare that to 73 and 8 for Greg Vellante. He has 1 pin to take the extra point, or to tie, and then 2 pins to win the 5th game for an additional 2 points. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 10-4 split today. And, ooh. Okay. Well, we're going to have to pause for that once again. Anyways, so we were talking about these folks in the Candlepin world. And we can check out, again, I'm 3-Ball Spare on YouTube. If you want to see more matches just like this, there's the ACST page on Facebook. Candlepin Corner makes some great content, including the Skins show and a whole bunch of other things. They sponsored the New England Knockout Tournament Series. And there's, okay, it looks like the tubes came back up. Figures we're in the last 2 frames, and we're just trying to just let the pin setter do its business down there, and hopefully it's all set. I think we should be good to continue onwards here. Scott Perry has 2 strikes, 16 spares, and 7 tens with a 52% perfect box percentage for the day, not counting these last 2 boxes. Oops. And he's on the head pin there, 4-7, 2-10. 6 drop, 6 split. Perry will go off to the left. Overthrow by a little bit. Scott Perry will cut over and almost take all 4. He'll take 3 of 4. That's a good out of 9. That's 109, triple digits. He will take the 5th game officially now. 558 and counting. 42 off of a 600. It's not attainable, but he can definitely get somewhat close to it. Scott Perry off to the right of the head pin, and he'll drop 7-1-2-8. Is the spare leave. Scott Perry on the 1-2-8. Should be a gimme. It is a gimme. There's the gimme of a spare. 1 ball to go, 1 fill to go. He's at 110. And in fact, let me go to Scott Perry's records. His high series for the ACST this season is 561. He's at 568 and counting. This is a new high series in addition to his high single. So some superlatives for Scott Perry today. Some personal records being broken in the series, in the league, in the ACST. And what a way to end it. That's a quarter Worcester fill. Well, it's still good. It's still a big 11 for Scott Perry. And that is game. That is ball game with that 1 fill for a 111 final game for Scott Perry for a 5-game total of 569. Greg Vellante with a 502 5-game series. Both bowlers really bowling great today. It was great to watch. Great action today. All right, so with that, let's go to our final stats today. Greg Vellante will come out with 2 points today. Scott Perry will take 12. Greg Vellante will move to an even 500 record of 70 and 70. Scott Perry will go to 106 and 62. Quite a positive record. Greg Vellante couldn't find a strike today, but he had 8 spares and 11 tens. Scott Perry had 2 strikes, 17 spares, and 7 tens for a 52% perfect box percentage. Scott Perry filled 112 pins, averaging 5.89 per mark. Greg Vellante totaled 47, averaging 5.88 per mark, so they both averaged about the same on each fill. For lane 23, Scott Perry threw a 281, but his favorite lane was 24 with a 288. But again, the difference was only 7 pins. For Greg Vellante, the gap was a little bit better. He still favored lane 24 over lane 23. Scott Perry went 27 for 50 on the head pin with a 54% completion rating for the head pins today versus Greg Vellante's 36. 12 splits for Scott Perry versus 8 splits for Greg Vellante. And a first ball average of 6.18 for Scott Perry for a 5.96 first ball average for Greg Vellante. If they were bowling head-to-head, Scott Perry would have won in the boxes, one head-to-head department, 24 to Greg Vellante 17, with the rest being ties. That's your analysis. It's 502 for Greg Vellante, 569 for Scott Perry, the final score. And here's some graphs if you want to pause the video and analyze this further. Greg Vellante, look at that 9-box stat. Like we said, he got a lot of 9 boxes today, but Scott Perry with the high spare stat. That was big. Not really a lot of really kind of wildly outlier boxes aside from maybe just like a 6-box or 2 from Scott Perry in particular, I believe. But other than that, it's been a great match. It was competitive, back and forth, exciting, full of drama, full of mechanical funness and everything. This was just the greatest, just the great kind of match with a little bit of everything sprinkled in. Anyways, that should just about do it for us here at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. I've been Steve Kelly on the call. It was great to have you along today on this adventure through Class D North. Scott Perry victorious over Greg Vellante today. I want you to check out my channel, 3-Ball Spare, on YouTube and Facebook if you want to see more like this. And if you want to check me out tomorrow, we'll be streaming the Porriers, the battle for Class E North tomorrow here at Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord, New Hampshire. Anyways, I'm Steve Kelly again. Great to have you along. I'll see you at the next Atlantic Canada Singles Tour. Have a great one, everybody.